Yesterday we began with the following question.
Dear Greg, my 6-year-old and my 8-year-old fight with each other all the time. They argue about everything, and pretty often their arguments degenerate into hitting. I've told them to stop it 1,000,000 times, yelled at them, and punished them, but they're still hitting each other whenever they get the chance. How do I stop this? It's making me crazy.
Yesterday I told you that your children have been telling you something with their behavior, and that so far you've been missing it. So what is it? What's the real meaning of your children fighting with each other all the time? As human beings, we do a lot of things that are pretty puzzling, even crazy at times. But I've learned that you can make sense of almost any situation or behavior if you can just learn what people need most in that moment. Much of our behavior, especially the more dramatic it is in response to a pressing need of some kind. For example, one day I was eating dinner with some friends at a restaurant, and one of the men at the table suddenly stood up with a wild-eyed expression on his face and began thrashing around with his hands, knocking plates and glasses off the table. It was pretty disturbing, and people were frightened. They backed away from him to protect themselves, and of course they wondered what in the world he was doing. This went on for several moments, long enough for me to stand up, walk around behind him. I put my arms around him, squeezed him hard with my fist in the middle of his chest, and a piece of meat shot out of his mouth and hit the opposite wall. Instantly, he took a huge breath and sat down. The thrashing was over, and in moments he was calm and smiling. What happened? While other people were blindly reacting to how my friend's behavior affected them, I understood what he needed. I knew that he had a piece of food blocking his windpipe, and that all he needed was some air. Because I knew that, his behavior made complete sense to me, and I was able to respond in a way that literally saved his life. In a similar way, when you understand what your children need, you'll understand their behavior too, just as I did with my friend. And then you'll finally be able to give them what they really need instead of just trying to control their individual behaviors, which is really pretty frustrating, isn't it? For you and for them. You will be able to save your children's lives in just as real a way as I saved my friend. Now this is going to be fun, so let's get to it. What is it that your children need? In order to be happy, what your children need more than anything else, what everybody needs more than anything else, is to feel loved. But not just any kind of love will do. Children can be happy only when they feel loved unconditionally, when they know that we care about their happiness without wanting anything from them in return. Children are simply happy when they have enough real love. Unfortunately, very few children are loved unconditionally. We've all seen proof of that in our own lives when we were children. As children, when we were clean, quiet, obedient, cooperative, we saw lots of approval from our parents and others. Smiles, gentle tones of voice, kind words. But we also saw what happened when we were loud, disobedient, and inconvenient. What happened to the smiles then and the kind words when we were loud and inconvenient? Poof! They were gone in an instant. All those signs of approval were immediately replaced with frowns, sighs of disapproval, that sound, and harsh words. And from this change in behavior, we could have learned only one lesson. When you're good, I love you, but when you're not, I don't. Our children, including your children, that 6 and 8-year-old, have learned the same lesson, and that is the worst wound a child can receive. You did not mean to hurt them, but every time you become annoyed with them, when you sigh, raise your voice, shrug your shoulders, frown, and all that stuff that, judging from your letter, I'm certain you do quite often, your children hear you say only 4 words. I don't love you. I know that's a very strong thing to say, an indictment, really, of how we've been raising children for millennia. And it bears repeating. Any time we express disappointment or irritation at a child, he or she hears us say only 4 words. I don't love you. Our anger has been that devastating on our children. It has that devastating an impact. No kidding. Now, at this point, you may be tempted to think, as most people do, now wait a minute. Sure, I get mad at my kids sometimes, but I still love them. That's a very understandable comment, and we do need to respond to it, but not today. Tomorrow we'll discuss how selfish our anger is, how it affects our children, and how we can eliminate the destructive power of anger in ourselves and in our children's interactions with one another. We will discover, once again, that it's always about real love.